So, what were we talking about? We were talking about Samba Canção, right? So we were in preparation for listening to some bossa nova. So, as I mentioned, that you could hear from that Samba Canção, it's a beautiful song, and but rhythmically, it's missing. It doesn't have as much rhythm going on as bossa nova does. It's basically the rhythm in the samba canção is limited to this, cha 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 cha, and that's and it's fine, but it's very simple. So anyway, so here this is actually the little thought balloon guy. This is the one that I meant to put in here. The other one I was supposed to take out. But anyway, so my idea was this. Okay, so my question was this: how did João Gilberto get from the samba canção to the bossa nova? What might have been his thinking process? So I made up this little cartoon, and yeah, so Tom Jobim and all the cats are into this samba canção thing, and the rhythm has got this un cha 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 un cha cha cha. Okay, so I'd love to play with them, but I'm kind of tired of that rhythm. So this is the kernel here. What if I could come up with a different one measure pattern that would be slightly hipper? Okay, so in other words, I can't change it too much, because if I do, it's not going to go with these samba canção songs that Tom Jobim. By the way, Tom, that's what they call Antonio Carlos Jobim in Brazil. They take the tone of Antonio. They just call him Tom Jobim. So he couldn't really change it too much, or else it would clash with the songs that Jobim was writing, which were in the samba canção style. So I'm thinking, probably what he said was, well, let me see, maybe I could come up with a different one measure pattern which would still fit the song, but might be a little hipper, okay? And this is just my conjecture, and I'll show you why I think this, that he might have said, I could take the first measure of a traditional samba pattern, so usually which is 2 measures long. I could just take the first measure and repeat that over and over again, and that's basically what he does to come up with the basic bossa nova pattern. So let's take a listen to that. So here's your basic bossa nova, one measure bossa nova pattern, right? Ba, 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 ba. So it does the same thing as the other pattern, that cha 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 cha, but it's got a little bit more rhythm to it. It's a little, it was something new. It was anyway. So let's listen to, this is a song, the example I picked out. This is João Gilberto playing a song called Coisa Mais Linda, which was actually written by Carlos Lira, The Most Beautiful Thing. So let's take a listen to that. And I also printed out the words for this one, so we can take a look at that.
Coisa mais bonita é você assim, justinho você, eu juro. Eu não sei por que você é mais bonita que a flor, quem dera a primavera da flor tivesse todo esse aroma de beleza que é o amor perfumando transformando a natureza numa forma de mulher.
So let me just pause this for a minute. So, one thing that I just noticed, I hadn't thought about this before, but it's actually quite a bit faster than that samba canção that we listened to, right? So it's funny because we tend to think of bossa nova as being a slower kind of music, but it was maybe twice as fast as that samba canção. So that's another difference, maybe another thing that helped to make the bossa nova a little bit less in people's ears at that time, maybe a little bit less lethargic sounding, is that the tempo is a little faster, and it's got this catchy little ba 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 ba, got a little syncopation to it. Okay, so the next thing, let me just see here. I want to have my notes here in front of me to be able to see what's next. Um, okay. So now let's go on to the next rhythm, okay? So the next bossa nova rhythm that I want to talk about, this is something that's usually played on the rim of the snare drum, okay? And you've probably heard this before. This is my computer playing this, so I hope you don't mind, but it's okay. So basically, it's kind of like a group of three, 1, 2, 3, and then a rest, and then two beats. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that would be one version of it, and then similar to samba, okay, you can take the two measures and you can reverse them. So you can take this measure and you put it here. So now instead of 3, 2, we've got like a 2, 3. So we've got rest 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And one of the things that's interesting about this pattern for me is that, especially in this reverse version, the forward too, but in the reverse version, because you have so many notes, because basically it's these groups of three, and for me it tends to, these continuous anticipations kind of blur the sense of it being two separate measures. So that's another thing that for me kind of gives it more of a sense of 4/4. Listen to this reverse one. So you got this one ba 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 ba, one ba 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 ba, one da. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 da da da. It just keeps going. Really, it goes for like 4 beats before it resolves. So that's, to me, that gives it more of a 4 feel. Okay, what is next? Let's see here. Okay, so let's look at, sorry, yeah. So we got these two possible directions for this, right? The 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then we also have the reverse, which is the rest. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So I want to show you. I mentioned to you earlier that in bossa nova, that they don't tend to keep the patterns as consistently as they do in traditional samba. So they often can, they play around with them more. So for example, so this is Jobim's Vivo Sonhando, and I use it as an example of how bossa nova has a very flexible interpretation of clave. So So here you notice that it starts with the 3-2. right? So you got that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then it continues 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and it, right all the way through here. And then this something interesting happens. So he sticks in a measure of that guitar pattern, that da da da, that da da ba, just one measure of that, and then he ends it instead of the second measure now ends up being what the first measure was. So he's now reversed the pattern. So now instead of being 3 2, it's this neutral pattern and then the 3. And then from then on, it's all going to be 2 3 2. See, 1 2 rest, 1 2 1 2 3, and it goes on like that for the rest of it. So here it's 1 2 3 1 2, and here it's 1 2 1 2 3. So in traditional samba, you would never do that, but in bossa nova, you can. So let's take a listen to that. This is the introduction right now, but it's still 3 2. Okay, here we go. Okay, so sorry. So I hope that was uh, clear. And now, by the way, one of the reasons that this is possible, the reason that you can do this in bossa nova, sometimes, often, is that the melodies lend themselves to that. So it's like I was saying before about when you have music that's in clave, it's not just the rhythm section doing one thing and then the singer, is doing another thing. It's all tied together. So in bossa nova, for example, the melodies, they tend to kind of float over the top of they don't have a very strong sense of clave in the melody. They tend to float over the top more. And so the less kind of tied down the melody, the more floating the melody is, then that gives you a lot more liberty to kind of play around with things. You can take the clave and switch it around, and you could do a lot more things like that. Okay, the next thing, let's see what's next. What is okay, so I have one more, let me see, one more thought experiment thing and I want to see what I did here. Okay, so we're going to go, in a minute, we're going to go to this, okay? We're going to go to the song called Este Seu Olhar, which is a Jobim tune. And I just want to, before we get to that though, so you see, let me get back to this thing. We went from this one measure pattern, right? So, that's the original bossa nova, maybe the basic bossa nova pattern, which is this one measure over and over again, which, it's nice, and it works. But, if you know João Gilberto, you know that that's not the only thing that he did. He did other things. So I came up with this little thought experiment here where this guy who it's supposed to be João Gilberto, but it's not. And so, he's saying to himself, hey, okay, so now I came up with this, with this pattern to play on these samba canção tunes that Jobim wrote. But you know what? I mean, I want to improve on that. Just playing the one pattern over and over is maybe a little bit boring for me. I could make it more interesting. So I have an idea. I can come up with a second motif and I can pair them together. So A, B, just like in samba, except that, check this out, both motifs, sorry, will start on the downbeat. Okay? So that's so different from samba, where you've got this always one on the downbeat, one on the offbeat, one on the onbeat. See, both motifs can start on the downbeat, so they'll be kind of the same and yet contrasting at the same time. All right? Uh, and then, but there's more because he doesn't stop there. All right, and you'll see when we analyze this next piece. There's so much going on. It really actually really opened my eyes when I did this transcription. So then he says, okay, so that's great. So I have this A, B. They're both starting on the downbeat, yet they're both different. So that gives us some contrast. But he says, I still kind of miss that thing where you anticipate the second measure in samba. So, I'll do that sometimes too. And what the heck? Sometimes I'll just go back to that basic simple pattern I invented last week and just play it over and over again. Sounds like a plan. Okay, so that's my a little different way of explaining that. Okay, so let's take a look at this piece, and I'm just going to, ask you to take my word that I analyzed this correctly, but you'll be able to see it. So what have we got here? We've got four different things going on. We've got an A pattern, all right? This A pattern, which is like da 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 da. Okay, we've got the B pattern, which is basically the original one that he started with dee da da dee da da dee da da dee da, and the A da 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 da. So they're close, but they're different. They're just different enough that you can use them one to contrast with the other, so that it's not just the same pattern over and over again. Okay, and then the other two things we've got, in addition to the A pattern and the B pattern, we also have the A pattern. So we've got this dotted eighth, 16th note, 16th note, eighth. We got the same thing up here, but with an anticipation. So we got the A with the anticipation, and then you can also take the B, which is the 2/8 and the 16th, 8th, 16th, and then but tied over. So we have the anticipation. So we got really, four different things to play with, which really, makes the music very, very interesting. So we have two different ways that we can get contrast. We can get the A, just the A with the B, so that's a contrast. And then you also get a contrast between this B by itself that doesn't start with the anticipation. That starts right on the downbeat. And then the second one, which does start with the downbeat. So we have a lot of different ways that we can make these contrasts, and none of them are exactly like traditional samba. They are all kind of an original way of dealing with that. So let's listen to this and check it out. This is a little introduction. Okay, here we go.
Esse seu olhar, quando encontra o meu, fala de umas coisas que eu não posso acreditar. Doce é sonhar, é pensar que você gosta de mim como eu de você. Mas a ilusão, quando se desfaz, dói no coração de quem sonhou, sonhou demais.
B.
Ah, se eu pudesse entender o que dizem os seus olhos. Esse seu.
Okay, so I'm going to pause that. So, did you see what he did in the? So this is the first half of the song, right? It's 32 measures. So this is the first One, two, three, four, 8, 16. Yeah. So this is the first 16 measures, and you notice, a lot of contrast between these A's and B's. But then when he gets to the second 16 measures, he goes back to that thing, that original super simple bossa pattern, that ba 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 ba, because that it does work, and but he establishes, you know really gives you a sense of a lot of rhythm, and so that's that. This is just a picture I made of the different groupings, so whatever called the B anticipated together with the B, just the regular A together with the A anticipated with the B, so a lot of rhythmic things going on there. All right, what is next? Okay, so I want to really get into some samba. Now that we have an idea of what bossa nova is like, I like to get into listening to some samba stuff. And I just wanted to mention that I keep talking about clave, and I know, and if you know a little bit about Cuban music, you know that's something they talk about all the time. And in fact, the word clave comes from Cuban music. So I just want to say, so Brazilians don't talk about clave. If you ask it, start talking about clave with a Brazilian, no. But they do structure the music that way. They structure the music as if there were a clave, even though they don't use that word. And one of the words that they do use, that describes the clave idea, is telecoteco, telecoteco, and it's an onomatopoetic word that mimics the sound of the tambourine. The tambourine is that small circular drum that you hit with a stick, right? And so let's listen to this pattern, and let me move this up a little bit. Okay, let's listen to this pattern, and this is the telecoteco pattern. So that da 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 da. So people will often refer to that as telecoteco. And as a matter of fact, they even wrote a song that we're going to listen to now here. And this is, I believe it's from, let's see, it is from 1942. Okay, and it's called Telecoteco. And I just wanted to add one more thing. We're going to start getting into some song lyrics now. We're going to start doing a lot more of listening to songs, and I've included the lyrics. And I just wanted to say, just keep in mind that these lyrics were written like 80 years ago, okay? And I mean, there are two things. One, they reflect a different culture. It's some people who play samba are a certain, subculture of Brazil, so it reflects that. And it also reflects the fact that these songs were written 80 years ago. And then I suppose there's also a certain aspect that, that nothing has changed since then, in terms of some things have changed in relationships between people and some things haven't. But anyway, so just keep that in mind as we listen to this. So this is the song called Telecoteco.
Teleco, teco, 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 teco. Ele chegou de madrugada, batendo tamborim.
Let's see.
Teco, 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 teco. Ele chegou de madrugada, batendo tamborim. Teleco, teco, teco, teleco, teco. Cantando pra saúde, dizendo foi pra mim. Teleco, teco, 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 teco. Eu estava zangada e muito chorei. Passei a noite inteira acordada e a minha bronquite assim comecei. Você não se dá o respeito, assim desse jeito, isso acaba mal. Você é um homem casado, não tem o direito de fazer carnaval. Ele abaixou a cabeça, deu uma desculpa e eu protestei. Ele arranjou um jeitinho e me fez um carinho e eu perdoei. Ele chegou de madrugada, batendo tamborim. Ai, teleco, tec, teleco, tec, cantando pra saúde, dizendo foi pra mim. Teleco, tec, eu estava zangada e muito chorei. Passei a noite inteira acordada e a minha bronquite assim comecei.
Notice how consistent that rhythm is. It never stops. The pattern always keeps going.
Ele chegou de madrugada, batendo tamborim. Cantando pra saúde, dizendo foi pra mim. Eu estava zangada e muito chorei. Passei a noite inteira acordada e a minha bronquite assim comecei. Você não se dá o respeito, assim desse jeito, isso acaba mal. Você é um homem casado, não tem o direito de fazer carnaval. Ele abaixou a cabeça.
Sorry, we have a lot of music to listen to, so I'm gonna pause this for now. So anyway, so that's the teleco teco rhythm there in the song. And okay, so now let's go to, we're gonna continue with our samba rhythms here. And this is a song by Ivan Lins. It's called Madalena. And this is a variation on that same rhythm. So ba 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 ba. So you see how it starts on the downbeat there, and then you've got that anticipation there, and this keeps going through the song.
Ó Madalena, o meu peito percebeu que o mar é uma gota comparado ao pranto meu. Fique certo quando o nosso amor desperta, logo o sol se desespera e se esconde lá na serra. Madalena, o que é meu não se divide. Então
Okay, so you see how, you know, in the middle of the song it changes, but for quite a while there in the beginning, it maintains this da 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 da. So that owes its that, you know, is coming out of samba. So let's go to the next one. We got about 10 minutes here. So this is another one by Ivan Lins, and you'll notice that the pop songwriters, okay, the traditional sambistas, the old guys, they tend to like to write most of their sambas with the anticipated side first. But Ivan Lins often likes to write his with the starting on the downbeat. So this is another one. Let's just listen to this. Starts off kind of quiet.
Aparecida, me conta por onde é que você andou. Me conta por que é que você não tem mais aquela afeição, não tem mais a mesma euforia, não tem mais a mesma paixão.
So anyway, we have so many songs I want to share. So, but you notice how that dee da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da. It's, you know, how persistent that is. Okay, it doesn't. In you listen, if you remember the João Gilberto piece, he's changing the rhythm all the time. This owes a lot more to traditional samba in that the pattern pretty much stays the same. In a little small, small variations, but it's like a complex pattern, but it tends to stay the same. Let's go. I also like this thing in the song lyric. It's the name of the song is Aparecida. Wow, it's been upgraded, so we can stay a little bit longer. It says here. The name of the song is Aparecida, which is a woman's name, but he plays with the Portuguese here because he says "geez," which is a way of saying "tell me," okay, and then you put that together with her name, Desaparecida. That means you disappeared, okay, and then if you look at the words to the song, he talks about, he says, to disappear this way doesn't make any sense. So it's about a woman who somehow, left him or went missing or something. But it's interesting. I like that little wordplay there. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Oops, sorry. Okay, now we're going to look at some of the forward patterns. So these are the ones, like I said, in traditional samba, they like, starting with the anticipation. It sounds a lot more off the beat, and they like that. So, okay, so here's the song. It's called, let me see. Let's listen to this here. Oops. Acabou a sopa. Acabou a sopa literally means there's no more soup. Okay, but you'll see how that fits into the...
Essa não é a primeira
1940.
vez que você me aborrece. E depois com cara de santa me aparece pedindo perdão. Sem me pedir foi ao baile, isso não se faz. Eu vou lhe mandar embora para nunca mais. Essa não é a primeira vez que você me aborrece. E depois com cara de santa me aparece pedindo perdão. Sem me pedir foi ao baile, isso não se faz. Eu vou lhe mandar embora para nunca mais. Pode arrumar sua roupa, porque acabou a sopa. Volte ao baile e vá dançar melhor. Abusou da confiança, você já não é mais criança. Se eu lhe perdoar, fará depois pior. Essa não é a primeira vez que você me aborrece.
So, once again, you hear how consistent that pattern is. It's not that they don't change it at all. They make variations, but it's much more consistent than in some of the João Gilberto stuff. And there's a reason. The reason for that is that this is originally dance music, and it's a lot easier to dance to something when you okay. And this is I'd like to go on to the next one. This is a beautiful song. This is one of my favorite sambas. It's by Paulinho da Viola, and it's called Onde a Dor Não Tem Razão, where pain doesn't make any sense anymore. And
no meu coração. Já não mais se agitam as ondas de uma paixão. Ele não é mais abrigo de amores perdidos, é um lago mais tranquilo, onde a dor não tem razão. Nele a semente de um novo amor nasceu, livre de todo rancor, em flor se abriu. Venho reabrir as janelas da vida e cantar como jamais cantei esta felicidade ainda. Quem esperou como eu por um novo carinho e viveu tão sozinho tem que agradecer. Quando consegue do peito tirar um espinho, é que a velha esperança já não pode morrer. Pra dizer que no meu coração já não mais se agitam as ondas de uma paixão. Ele não é mais abrigo de amores perdidos, é um lago mais tranquilo, onde a dor não tem razão. Nele a semente de um novo amor nasceu, livre de todo rancor, em flor se abriu. Venho reabrir as janelas da vida e cantar como jamais cantei esta felicidade ainda.
So you see how he maintains that clave pattern, that ba 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 be da 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 dee da 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 da, right? So let's move on to the next one here. Okay, so now this is interesting. We're going to go back to João Gilberto, okay? And this is João Gilberto during that second period of his, during that later period, when he actually, his guitar playing goes back, becomes much more traditional. So he comes up with a clave pattern on the guitar and basically keeps that going. And then later, what he, in a almost like a third stage of his development, he starts playing with the placement of the words. So he'll start pushing the words forward or holding back the words and so forth. But this is the first step of that, which is that where he goes back to a more traditional approach rhythmically on the guitar. So this one is called, this is another old song. And you notice, by the way, that João Gilberto, he loves these old sambas. I mean, a lot of the sambas, I think the date on this is, let's see, 43. So he was, a lot of the things he was recording were 20 years earlier. And then he was doing his own version of it. So.
Vivendo dessa maneira, continua é besteira, não adianta não. O que passou é poeira, deixa de asneira, que eu não sou limão. Oi, de conversa em conversa, você vai arranjando meio de brincar. Oi, de palavra em palavra, você está querendo é nos separar. Parece até que o destino uniu-se com você só pra me maltratar. E cada dia que passa é mais uma tormenta que eu deixei ficar.
I just wanted to pause it for 1 second so you can hear that ba 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 ba. So listen to that as it goes along.
Os nossos trapos, arrume tudo que é seu, que eu vou separando os meus farrapos. Vivendo dessa maneira, continua é besteira, não adianta não. Não, não, o que passou é poeira, deixa de asneira que eu não sou limão. Noite conversa e conversa, você vai arranjando meio de briga. Noite palavra em palavra, você está querendo é nos separar. Parece até que o destino uniu-se com você só pra me maltratar. E cada dia que passa é mais uma tormenta que eu deixei ficar. Nosso viver não adianta.
So you can hear how he keeps that pattern going very consistently. Little variations here and there, but basically he's keeping what I would call a clave. He's keeping this pattern super consistent. And it's always this two-measure pattern with the anticipation one starting with the anticipation and then the one on the downbeat. So here's another song. We're going to listen to another one. Same thing, same pattern, same period, same rhythm, and this one is called Isaura.
Ai, 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 Isaura, hoje eu não posso ficar. Se eu cair nos seus braços, não há despertador que me faça acordar, eu vou trabalhar. Ai, 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 Isaura, hoje eu não posso ficar. Se eu cair,
I think that's his daughter singing, actually.
despertador que me faça acordar.
The bell she barefoot when she was very young.
Hoje eu não posso ficar. Se eu cair nos seus braços, não há despertador que me faça acordar. O trabalho é um dever, todos devem respeitar. O Isaura, me desculpe, no domingo eu vou voltar. Seu carinho é muito bom, ninguém pode contestar. Se você quiser eu fico, mas vai me prejudicar, eu vou trabalhar. Ai, 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 Isaura, hoje eu não posso ficar.
So I think we're getting to the end of our talk here. We've covered a lot of stuff. I just want to do one more thing. I'd like to just introduce you a little bit to this rhythm called Partido Alto, which it's a category of samba rhythm, and there's a couple of different ways to play it. I guess we're going to have time today for me to show you what I call the old school style. And this is right here, this dee da da dee da dee da dee da da dee da da dee da dee da dee da da dee da da da. So let's listen to the beginning of that. Okay, so that's this Partido Alto style. And the other thing I want to talk about, so so Partido Alto is actually two different things. It's the name of the rhythm, and it's also the name of the form, the song form, and what you do in the form. So basically, what it is it's a simple song with basically a simple refrain. So here you have the refrain. The name of the song is Perdoa, and the refrain is, it's nothing special. It's just basically, my love, forgive me, forgive my sinning heart. I could never live without you. So this is the refrain. Everybody sings this together. Excuse me. And then the singers, the performers, actually, the people, the guitarist and the pandeiro player and everybody takes turns making up improvised verses. All right, and so that's why you'll see that this looks like a kind of a regular song, and then this you can just see that there's an improvised quality to it. It just sounds like, I mean, they're making it up on the spot, and some of it is pretty clever. But you can see that you'll see the difference between the two sections. So let's listen to that. Let me go. Oh, let me go back. Sorry.
Meu bem, perdoa, perdoa meu coração pecador. Você sabe que jamais eu viverei sem o seu amor. Mas ora, meu bem, perdoa, perdoa meu coração pecador. Você sabe que jamais eu viverei sem o seu amor. Ando comprando fiado porque meu dinheiro não dá. Imagine se eu fosse casado com mais de 6 filhos para sustentar.
Nunca me deram moleza e posso dizer que sou trabalhador. Fiz um trato com você, quando fui receber você não me pagou.
Mas ora meu bem, perdoa, perdoa meu coração pecador. Você sabe que jamais eu viverei sem o seu amor. Mas ora meu bem, perdoa, perdoa meu coração pecador. É isso aí. Você sabe que jamais eu viverei sem o seu amor. Chama o dono dessa casa, que eu quero dizer como é o meu nome. Diz um verso bem bonito, ele vai responder pra matar minha fome.
Eu, como dono da casa, não sou obrigado a servir nem banana. Se quiser saber meu nome, é o tal que não come há mais de uma semana.
Mas ora meu bem, perdoa, perdoa meu coração pecador. Você sabe que jamais eu viverei sem o seu amor. Ora meu bem.
The other thing that you might notice is that, that even though this rhythm is played the whole time, that they don't necessarily only play that rhythm. So, for example, the regular pandeiro, that, kataka chikataka 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 chikataka, that they will play that also. So they started off with just the partido alto figure, and then they added the regular pandeiro to it, and then sometimes they come back to just the partido alto. So anyway, so that's my talk for today, and I think why don't we stop here, and then I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to be able to look at everybody, and I'm open to open it up to some questions. Does that sound good, Dan?
Yeah. So if anyone has a question, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Well, you should probably call on them maybe.
Well.
Oh, you'll see if they're unmuted. Yeah.
Yeah. Just anybody question? Go ahead, unmute yourself and.
Hi, it's Mark. So I was just curious, between the samba and the bossa, there are a lot of these patterns where you're playing thumb and then finger. There's some when you're playing thumb with finger. So I'm trying to understand better, when you're playing the thumb, is the thumb always louder than the fingers, or the other way, or the same, or does it just vary from song to song?
Okay, so you're talking about playing the guitar, right?
Yeah.
And so your question was like what the volume level should be between the thumb and the fingers? Or
to put it a different way, is the bass notes that come, on the 1 and the 2, or the 1 and the 3, however you want to count it, are those always less, more, or the same prominence as the other notes?
Well, it's a little hard to answer that question without actually, having be easier if we had some guitars in front of us and I could demonstrate. But no, basically when it should all, when you're listening to the guitar part, whether it's bossa nova or samba, whatever the fingers and the thumb are playing, it should sound integrated. It should all sound like it's like one person playing. So if it sounds like somehow like the thumb and the fingers are not connected in some way, like the thumb is too loud or the fingers are too loud, then, I mean, I think the correct balance, they should be more or less even. I mean, maybe the bass is a little bit louder, but the main thing is that rhythmically they should sound like it's one person playing those two parts. It shouldn't. Sometimes I hear people playing the thumb and the fingers, and it sounds like they're kind of jumping back and forth between the thumb and the fingers. It should all sound coordinated.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I had one. Do they play something different at the turnaround? At the end of the verse, will they break up the pattern there? And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, my point was, the point was not. That's another thing is that, this is a lecture, right? This is a demonstration, and of course, I take everything and I have to simplify it to a certain extent. So I try to kind of show you like what are the basic patterns and what are the basic tendencies. So, but yeah, in both cases, in the bossa nova and in the samba, generally speaking, when they get to what you talked about, the turnaround, like the end of the song or the end of the first half or something like that, you probably noticed that they kind of take a break from the pattern for a few measures, and they might play something else, maybe more 16th notes, da 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 dee da 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 da, just to kind of tie things up, and then they go on and as soon as they go back to the beginning of the next section or the beginning of the tune again, they're back to that pattern, some kind of a pattern. So yeah, that's right.